Hello guys, ClassOfFour here. So now we will go over some questions in regards to inverse functions and composite functions. So let's get on to the first question that we see here. First question here is let f of x equal x squared and g of x equal 2x minus 3. The first question that's being asked is find the inverse function of g of x. So let's start with the first one. So we know that g of x is equal to 2x minus 3. So therefore y is equal to 2x minus 3. And what we have to do, personally for me, the easiest way to find out the composite function for the, in this case, g of x, we just switch the x and y values, and then after that we isolate the side where y has multiple algebraic arguments, and we move that to the other side so we have y equals whatever. So let's do that. So we're just gonna switch the x and y variables. X equals 2y minus 3. And then after this, we're, as I said, going to move all the algebraic compartments of the right side and move them to the left side with algebra. So x plus 3 equals 2y, and we'll divide both sides by 2, and this will give us x plus 3 divided by 2 equals y. So that is our answer. The inverse function for g of x is going to equal x plus 3 over 2. There you go. Simple as that. And pretty much this method goes for every single equation. You make y equals whatever it is, so we have the normal function. After that, we switch the x and y variables like so, and then isolate for y in order to get the composite function. Now let's move on to b. B is asking us, find f of g of 4. This means to find the output of putting 4 into the composite function of f of g. So let's find that out right now. So we need to first of all remember or refresh our minds on exactly what f of x and g of x are. So as given in the problem, f of x is x squared and g of x is 2x minus 3. So let's go ahead and write that down. F of x is x squared and g of x is 2x minus 3. And now we're going to have f of g of 4. But first of all, we have to find what f of g of x is. So the way I do it is simply go f of g of x, because that's essentially what a composite function is. So we know what g of x is. We can substitute 2x minus 3 for that, so we can find f of 2x minus 3. Now the important part here, to avoid any confusion, is to treat whatever's in these brackets as one entity, as one expression. And we have to apply f of x, forgot the equal sign there, we have to apply f of x to this. We have to pretend that this is like a variable, like a single variable. So let's say, for example, this variable is a. So essentially we have f of a. Well, if we put this in our function, we're gonna get a squared. And now simply we just have to expand on what a exactly is, as we defined previously as 2x minus 3, and then that's all squared. So there we go. That was quite simple. Our composite function is this 2x minus 3 squared, all squared. Now what we have to do is find out what f of g of 4 is, and that's the important part, f of g of 4. So we're going to input 4 into our argument. So we have f of g of 4, and this is going to equal 2 times 4 because I'm substituting x for 4, minus 3 squared. This is going to equal 8 minus 3 squared, which is 5 squared, and then that is quite simply 25. So therefore f of g of 4 is going to equal 25. So if you have any questions regarding what I did here, just, as usual, feel free to ask. But now we're going to move on to the second question in this video. Hello guys, so now let's move on to the second problem in this video, and it's rather more complex. So I'll assume that we know the techniques and such used in the previous question. So I'll spend less time explaining those, but I will be spending more time explaining the more complex aspects to this. So first of all, the question gives us two functions. The first one, f of x, is 2x cubed plus 3, and the second equation is g of x equals e to the 3x minus 2. So the first question is asking, what is g of 0? So let's go ahead and do that. We have g of x being equal to e to the 3x minus 2. So simply, what is g of 0? Well, let's input 0 in the x, and we will get this. Now, this seems quite complex, but I'll simplify it pretty much to it being really easy. Well, first of all, 3 times 0 is 0, so it's just e to the 0. Now, any exponent to the power of 0 is automatically equal to 1, so it's just going to be 1 minus 2, and hence g of 0 is going to equal negative 1. So now let's move on to the second part to this question, and this is asking us this question: if we input 0 into the composite function of f of g, what's the output going to be? So let's go ahead and do that. First of all, what we need is information on what f of x and g of x is. And as stated in the problem, f of x is 2x cubed plus 3, and g of x is e to the 3x minus 2. So f of x is equal to 2x cubed plus or minus 3, plus 3, and g of x is going to equal e to the 3x minus 2. So as we have done in the previous question, we will simply go through the steps and methodology as to getting the composite function. So this is the same as f of g of x. We are going to then substitute g of x to that. Now, as stated, we're going to keep it key here to treat this entire expression as just one entity, and then this brings it to 2 e to the 3x minus 2 cubed plus 3. Now if you don't know how I got here, just watch the question previous to this one and you'll see exactly the way I did it. And now that we have that, we're simply going to input 0 into this composite function, because this is what our composite function is. We just simply have to input 0 into it and tell the the master who's looking at our answers exactly what the answer is. So let's go ahead and substitute 0 into every x we see. 3, 0 minus 2 cubed plus 3. Now, doesn't this expression ring a bell? Well, if we see exactly what we did in the previous question, we can see that, hey, we just did this. We just did the exact same expression, and that's just g of 0. And since g of 0 is equal to -1, we're going to bring this answer that we have found out already and substitute it in for this. So we have 2 to the times -1 cubed plus 3. Now, a key here is that whenever we have a negative number to the power of an odd number, like 3 or 5 or 7 or 9, it's always going to be ending up to be a negative number. So this means that's just going to be 2 times -1 plus 3. And by the way, it doesn't matter how many times you multiply -1 by itself, it's still going to be 1 or -1. So we have -2 plus 3, and this is going to equal to 1. So that is the answer for f of g of 0. Now let's move on to the last question in this problem, B. This is asking, find the inverse function of f of x. So we know that the f of x function is 2x cubed plus 3. So let's go ahead and write that right down. F of x is equal to 2x cubed plus 3. Now we'll follow through and say y equals 2x cubed plus 3, and then we'll do the old switcheroo trick and just switch the x and y variables. So x is equal to 2y cubed plus 3. And following along, we will just move all the algebraic arguments to the other side so that we end up with an expression such as y equals whatever. So we'll do x minus 3 equals 2y cubed. After that, we can divide both sides by 2, so x minus 3 over 2 equals y cubed. And then we will simply get the cube root of x minus 3 over 2 equals y. Now this looks very messy, not just because of my handwriting, but also because of, all the operators and the cube root. It just doesn't look like a clean, easy to do. But it's our answer, and we don't have to go any further, so it's completely fine, however complex it looks on the other side. So that is our answer for B. If you have any other questions for this, as usual, feel free to ask if you have any questions or concerns. So now we will move on to the last question for this video. Alright guys, so now here is the third question, or the last problem in this video. So like usual, we are given two equations, or functions rather, and let's read them. F of x is x cubed minus 4, and g of x is simply 2x. So the first question is asking, find g of f of -2. We know the drill, you know the drill, let's do it. So I switched the f of g and g of f, because I want to clarify something. So our f of x is equal to x cubed minus 4. Our g of x is equal to 2x. So I want to clarify something here. For composite functions, g of f of x is not equal, remember this, it's not equal to f of g of x. They are completely different composite functions and they are not the same. So I will prove this to you just to make you guys convinced about it. So let's first of all find g of f of x. So this is gonna equal, well, okay, let me organize this a bit better. Okay, so we have g of f of x, and then we have f of g of x. So let's find out what g of f of x is. So this is going to equal g of f of x. So this is going to be equal to g of, and substituting f of x, x cubed minus 4. Treat this entire thing as a single entity and follow through. So that's going to be 2x cubed minus 4. And this is going to equal 2x cubed minus 8. And this is what g of f of x is equal to. Now let's do f of g of x. Well, this is just going to equal f of g of x. We'll follow through by substituting. So f of 2x, and treating that as a single entity, it's going to equal to 2x cubed minus 4. And this means, so 2 cubed is just 8, so that's going to be 8x cubed minus 4. And as you can see, they are not the same. They're completely different functions. So now that I've done that, let's go on with the problem. It's asking what's g of f of negative 2. So we're just going to input negative 2 into our composite function in the appropriate composite function. So it's just going to be equal to negative 2 times 3 to the power of 3 rather, minus 8. So as I've said in the previous question, if there's a negative number and you raise it to the power of an odd exponent, it's going to be a negative number. So this means that we just have to find 2 to the power of 3, and that's 8. And since there's a negative sign to it, it's going to be negative 8. And then we're going to follow through the equation, and it's going to be negative 8. So using algebra, we find that 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. So negative 16 minus 8. And this is negative 24. So that is what g of f of negative 2 is. Negative 24. Now that we've done that, let's go on to the next question here. And it's asking what's the inverse function of f of x. So let's do that. Alright. So f of x is going to equal, what did we say here? F of x is x cubed minus 4. Okay. And then after we have x cubed minus 4, we are going to go and say y is equal to x cubed minus 4. We'll use our switch trick, just switching the y and x variables. So we have x equals y cubed minus 4. And then we're going to go through the regular process of moving all the algebraic arguments to the other side, so we get an expression of y equals whatever. So it's going to be x plus 4 equals y cubed. And then we know to bring this to the other side, we'll get the cubed root. Let me write that a bit more, so it's a bit more literate. So cube root of x plus 4 equals y. There we go. That's our inverse function. So if you have any questions in regards to this unit, if you have any problems that you're facing, feel free to just send them to me, and I'll be happy to take a look at them and go over them in the next video potentially. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.